Guys, we have literally only 1 week left until Renegades launches, so today I wanted to make a video just compiling my general expectations going into this expansion, so then after I've played through most of the content, I can come back and see if my expectations were either met or not, and then kind of give a overall review of my experience with Renegades. Today we're going to be going over just expectations for everything coming that we know so far, that being mainly the campaign, the dungeon, and just how I feel like the general endgame loop of this expansion is going to play out. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the major update coming a little bit later, early next year, that being the Shadow and Order major update. So without any further ado, let's first talk about the thing that I'm probably the most sure will be good, and that is the campaign for Renegades. If you guys didn't play the Edge of Fate campaign, it's probably the main reason that you would actually play Edge of Fate. Other changes that came with the expansion weren't all that great, but the campaign, I can say, was very good, at least story-wise. Gameplay-wise, it can be hit or miss depending on what you personally like. I wasn't too bothered about the different puzzles and mechanics that you had to do within each of the story missions, although many people did complain about just having to constantly use the different Kepler mechanics to sort puzzles, which can be quite annoying if you don't like that style of gameplay. I wasn't too bothered with it. There was only a couple times where I wasn't really a fan, but overall it was an okay experience. But story-wise, it was a very, very good campaign that I was honestly quite nervous about due to them introducing a completely brand new character. The last time that they did that was in Lightfall, and we ended up with Nimbus, who I completely forget about nowadays, as well as Rohan, who died too fast for us to even begin to start caring about him. So with Lodi, it was a big surprise that he was actually well written and a very likable character that fit in with the story very, very well, even though he is completely out of his element in this universe. So overall, for the Renegades campaign, I am very, very excited. From what we've seen so far, we can see that there are quite a lot of elements that could be interesting when it comes to the Dredgen aspect, as well as the new Cabal Legion. I am very, very hopeful, but definitely not expecting there to be a lot more ties with like Dredgen lore that we've learnt about through past expansions. Mainly the man with the golden gun, I believe it's Shin Malphur. I doubt he will show up in this expansion, but if he did, that would just be my one wish for this campaign, that we actually get to experience and get introduced to that character properly within the game. If you don't know, I believe he's like a character that goes around hunting Dredgens, so the fact that there is a Dredgen taking center stage in this expansion, it would make a lot of sense for him to show up, although the Dredgen character, Dredgen Bale, does seem to have a tie in the brand new dungeon, so I don't know if he would actually show up in the campaign, or if that would be maybe a thing that happens within the dungeon itself. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, the campaign I'm expecting to be very, very good, especially if they learn from the mistakes of Edge of Fate in terms of gameplay. If they can sort that out and make the gameplay elements as good as the story could be, I feel like we're going to be in for a treat. Next, let's talk the dungeon. We know that I believe the dungeon is coming either the following week or the same week as the launch of the expansion. Either way, dungeons nowadays are probably the thing that I play more than actual raids, just due to you not needing to gather 6 or 5 additional people to play the game. You only need to get 2 other people in to go into a dungeon, and dungeons normally don't require that much communication, so for a solo player like myself, it's a very easy activity for me to just jump in with 2 other people and get it done. That said, the most recent dungeon I didn't really enjoy too much due to the mechanics within it being complex to the point where you weren't able to shorten any of the actual encounters. You always had to do the encounters in the length that they were meant to be done in. In most dungeon cases, you can normally shorten a couple of encounters by doing the mechanics quickly or just by doing enough damage, but with these different mechanics in the encounters, they were quite long, so I'm really, really hoping that we don't have a similar situation like that, where the mechanics are just very complex, and it ends up making it so the dungeon just takes way longer than it needs to. I feel like dungeons are best when they're like kind of not short and sweet, but not like multiple hour long spanning modes, you know what I mean? Obviously don't want the dungeon to be done in like a couple of hours, but like once I know how the dungeon works, I'm expecting to just go in, blitz through it, no problem. But some of the past dungeons, I believe some of the Doctrine was the last one, the mechanics in that, for me, they were just way too long to the point where I was just skipping the first two encounters to then just get to the final boss to see if I could get the exotic drop. But going off of just the loot that we're seeing, at least from the dungeon trailer for this new, I believe it's called Equilibrium dungeon, I am very, very excited due to it mainly being a Star Wars Clone Wars inspired in terms of the weapons that we're seeing, and also all the armor does look very, very cool. I'm very interested to see what the armor set bonus is. If it's anything like the raid armor set bonus, I'm expecting it to be very, very potent, so if I can easily farm out some of the armor from that, that's probably what I'm going to be doing, as long as the mechanics in the dungeon are fun, interesting, and it doesn't take up a whole load of time, meaning I can just speedrun through the different mechanics pretty easily. That's it. Now we go over to the thing that I'm the most nervous about with Renegades, that being the end game. As we know with Renegades, they're not going to be increasing the power levels. We're going to be staying at 550 as our maximum power, which means that most of the end game grind isn't really present, which has me kind of worried, because after a campaign in an expansion, the next thing to go and do is normally level, but we are completely skipping that. So my expectation here is that you'll get through the campaign, you'll probably have through that campaign already gotten quite a few weapons, and then we're just going to be basically waiting for the dungeon, and then once you've gotten all the loot from the dungeon, I feel like we're going to be basically done with the expansion, but I'm hoping that I am wrong here, but I'm not expecting that at all. Destiny for the longest time has only really had leveling as its main end game thing to go and do, so having an expansion not have that is going to be a very big shift. Now I'm hoping that Bungie has added in a new thing to go and grind. I know that they've added in factions back with the renegade syndicates that we see within the new social space we're getting. I really, really hope that those kind of add in a new thing for you to go and grind and do within the end game. I feel like that would be a really nice system, but we, as of right now, do not know anything about that. Hopefully we learn more within a new dev stream coming next week, but for right now, we're still kind of in the dark on those systems. So I'm very, very hopeful that the end game is still kind of there and there's stuff to go and do, but I'm also kind of not expecting that to be the case. Now, finally, let's end off here with the major updates that we know is following Renegades, that being Shadow and Order. Now, going off of the past major update, that being Ash and Iron, I'm not very hopeful for this major update. With Ash and Iron, we got like one new activity, one new story mission, and that was about it, alongside an exotic mission. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, although I do remember them stating that we might be getting like a Pantheon style mode within the next major update. So I'm hopeful there. That might be a fun thing to go and experience, especially if they're able to bring in some of the raids that were missed out of the past Pantheon, that being like Volta Glass, Crota's End, stuff like that. If they could maybe bring back some Forgotten raids or some Sunset raids in there, just a couple of like the mechanics, that would be nice. I don't know if that's actually feasible for them to bring in those Sunset raids like Leviathan or Scourge of the Past. Bringing back some of those encounters into a Pantheon style thing might be possible. Once again, no idea there. If that could be a thing, that would be amazing. But I'm not expecting anything outside of what we got from the last Pantheon, which is just already existing raid encounters being just mashed together, and maybe some new cosmetic items like emblems available from completing the higher difficulty versions of that mode, which should be fun. But for the general content coming with the major update, once again, not all that excited going off of what we got with Ash and Iron. If they can learn from the mistakes once again, that would be amazing. I would very much like to see them add in like a full-on story kind of thing, similar to what we had back with past seasons, where like each week we got a new mission to go and play or a new bit of story, because I feel like that was the major thing that was missing from Ash and Iron. We got like that one mission where the Vex invaded the city, and then it just kind of stopped, and we just went and did a new activity for the rest of the week until a new exotic mission dropped, which also didn't really fill in the blanks on what Maya was actually planning on doing there. It was kind of just a massive grey area, unless I was reading some of the lore tabs within the missions, which I really wasn't doing. So if they could add in some story missions to fill in the blanks within the major updates, I feel like that could be a very nice addition. But yeah, that's pretty much all my expectations going into Renegades with those 4 major content drops. Once again, the campaign, dungeon, endgame, and major update. But those are just my thoughts, so let me know your guys' in the comments. What are you guys expecting from Renegades? I know there's a lot of people worried because it is a Star Wars inspired expansion, but from what I've seen, it does still look very much Destiny, and I'm guessing that we'll learn a lot more from it with the next dev stream going live this upcoming Tuesday. But once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and with that all said, that's it from me. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, I would very much appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one.